Hi, this is Luna Piena. Today I want to talk about how to actually get better at learning a language. I know, YouTube is absolutely flooded with this kind of content. There are tons of people out there who are way more serious about language learning than I am, and they are constantly putting out really high level videos. Honestly, I don't think I could ever compete with them. I'm a native Japanese speaker and I also speak English and Italian, but I wouldn't say I speak them at advanced level. Depending on the topic, there are plenty of situations where I just can't express myself properly. Still, I do use both Italian and English for work, so I've gotten to a point where I can communicate well enough. So that's what I want to focus on today: how you can reach the level where you can actually use the language in your job or daily life. By the way, I've been posting in both English and Italian on my YouTube channel for quite a while now. If you compare my older videos with the more recent ones, you can probably tell that I'm improved a bit. At least I hope so. Personally though, whenever I look back at my old videos, I don't really feel like I've improved all that much, and honestly, that kind of frustrates me. In this video, I'm going to go over a few key points that are important in language learning. But let's be real. By the time you find this video, you've probably already heard about these methods somewhere else on YouTube. So instead of just explaining how to learn, I want to focus on whether these methods are actually useful and also share how I personally made use of them. The first point is this: don't rely on motivation, make it part of your routine. Now, that's easier said than done. A lot of people will tell you this is one of the most effective approaches, and I agree. It can be real useful, but here's the reality. Even if you manage to set aside time for language learning in your daily routine, most people just don't stick with it. Especially if you are already working, life gets busy, work piles up, other responsibility gets in the way, and before you know it, that little window of study time you had each day just disappeared. So what did I do to make sure I didn't let language learning slip out of my daily life? I started making friends on Instagram and Facebook. Now, of course, you could use language exchange apps like HelloTalk, and those can work too. But the problem is, there are always some people on there who aren't really interested in language learning at all. They are just looking for a boyfriend and girlfriends. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and if that's your goal, then great. But if all you want is language practice, it's not really the best environment. That's where Instagram and Facebook came in handy for me. There are so many people sharing different kind of content on Instagram, and since I was interested in art, I would comment in English and Italian on posts from people running art accounts. If they replied, I'd reply back, and then back and forth become part of the daily routine. Now I'll admit, replying in foreign language can be a bit of a hassle. But honestly, it's totally fine to use translation tool if you need it to. The main goal here is just keep up everyday communication with people, so even if you're using a translator sometimes, it's not a problem at all. What really matters is reading their messages, imagining how you'd like to respond in that language, and then, if you can't quite say it, leaning on the translator to fill the gap. As long as the conversation keeps going, that's a win. That's one method I turned into routine by making friends in the language you want to learn. You naturally start picking up on the things you wish you could have said but couldn't. And that sticks in your mind. You ended up learning in a way that feels natural and personal. Of course, it's still important to crack open a textbook and review grammar and phrases. But more than that, I think just using the language in real conversations, even if in the single chats, is what helps you get a real feel for it. And that's what makes it easier to keep learning over time. In my case, making YouTube videos actually became part of my routine. But honestly, I think that only really works once you reach the level where you can express yourself decently in the language. At the beginning, it's better to just use translation tools if you need it to, and focus on increasing the number of times you come into contact with the language. Once you feel like you've studied pronunciation a bit and gotten some practice, you don't even have to post anything on YouTube, just try recording yourself speaking on video. Watch it back and check how you sound. That alone can be really helpful. Second point is watching YouTube video in your target language. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this advice before. People always recommend watching movies or YouTube videos as part of the language learning. And honestly, there are a ton of creators out there already explaining how to study with video or films, so I'm not going to repeat that here. What I want to focus on here is what comes before that step. Because getting to the point where you can actually do this is real challenge. For example, think about when you come home after a long, tiring day and just want to relax. What's the first video you click on when you open YouTube? It's probably not in the language you are trying to study. Most likely, you'll end up tapping on something in your native language, the one that feels most comfortable and familiar. And honestly, I still fall into that habit even now. It's really hard to control. But one thing you can do is separate your YouTube accounts. If you create a different account just for language learning, then whenever you open that account, the recommendations will be in your target languages only. That way, you're kind of forcing the environment to work in your favor. And another trick is to basically trick your brain. Like I mentioned earlier, when I'm tired or drained, I naturally gravitate toward the kind of content I'm really comfortable with. But instead of letting myself do that, I try to switch over to content in another language. Here's why. When people are tired, they instinctively look for something relaxing or comforting. So if you introduce foreign language content in those moments, your brain can start to associate that language with relaxation. It kind of creates the illusion that this content is your way of unwinding. That's what I did. After finishing work or right after exercising, I deliberately watch or listen to something in English or Italian. Over time, by repeating that, my brain started to believe that this foreign language content was actually something enjoyable, soothing for me. The third point is actually speaking the language. Yeah, I know. You probably heard this advice a million times. Everyone says the best way to learn language is to actually talk with native speakers. And of course, that makes sense. We all get it. But here's the thing. The reason this advice gets repeated so much is because most people can't actually do it. It's not that simple. Even for me, there's a language I'm studying right now, and if someone suddenly told me, go talk to a native speaker right this second, honestly, I'd feel stressed and pretty anxious about it. But let's be honest, if you don't know the grammar or the vocabulary yet, trying to just start talking out of nowhere won't get you very far. You'll hit a wall, and honestly, I'll just feel like a waste of time. That's why I think the first step should be finding the personal teacher or at least someone who has experience teaching that language. Start practicing gradually with them. Of course, the ideal situation is being able to talk with friends or people you already know. But to get to that stage, you first need to reach a level where you can at least express what you want to say. And for that, having a private teacher in the beginning really helps. Then, once you get more comfortable, you can slowly move on to the chatting with your friends or with people you've met on the social media. And here's another tip. Talk about things you are genuinely interested in. For me, it was manga. I wasn't really much of manga reader at first, but when I studied abroad in Ireland and Italy, people kept bringing it up. They'd ask me questions or want to discuss theories, so little by little, I started getting more into it. Eventually, that interest grew into what I'm doing now with this account. Another big one for me was art. I remember having so many conversations with friends about contemporary art. So yeah, it's great to practice daily casual conversations, but trying to talk about something more specific, like a passion or area of expertise, can be an amazing experience too. Because in that process, you end up looking up new words, figuring out how to structure your sentence so people can really understand you. And that effort pays off. And this really depends on the person, but like mentioned earlier, I made it a habit to speak Italian through my YouTube videos. That actually becomes one of my main ways to practice speaking. A lot of people would leave comments too, and replying to those give me even more chances to communicate directly with them. So if you don't mind putting yourself out there, I definitely recommend trying it. These days, you can share videos on so many platforms: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever works for you. Just record yourself talking about something you are genuinely interested in and put it out there for native speakers of that language to see. That way, you create even more opportunities for real conversations and communication and feedback. And one last thing I want to add. These days, the trend seems to be all about how to study the language as efficiently as possible. That kind of content is super popular right now. But personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with spending a lot of time on it. Because the time you spend studying is something really valuable, an experience nobody else can ever take away from you. Think about it. If you were born bilingual and could already speak two languages automatically, you'd never really get the chances to study that second language. You have to start from third language. You wouldn't have that journey. Of course, being bilingual is a great skill to have, no doubt about it, but I honestly believe that the process of learning, the effort you put in, the people you meet, and the content you come across along the way, that experience is far richer than someone who was just born with the language can ever have. So with that, I truly hope everyone studying languages out there can enjoy the fuller, richer life through the process.